you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hello, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy's weekly podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm joined by Valley Indy reporter Ethan Fry. Hello, Ethan.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good. Let me adjust the mics. We're blowing out the equipment here. Today, our guests are Seymour First Selectman Miller and Stephan Behuniak, a member of the Seymour Board of Selectmen and leader of the town Democratic Party. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Yep, chairman of the DTC.
Hello, Stephan.
Hello.
Hello, Kurt.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, both of you.
It's your pleasure.
In general, I thought today we would talk about maybe bias in the media, the tone of politics today, and how that, at the sort of the national level, and how that does or does not tie into our local elections, which are scheduled to take place this November. We're recording this, by the way. It's Thursday, August 3rd. So before we start, however, I just wanted to thank the Ansonia Cultural Commission. This is going to make Kurt really happy. For taking out an advertisement on valleyindy.org.
Wow.
We do offer ads and sponsored posts for just $99 a week. It's a steal if you consider we have 14,000 followers on Facebook alone. So Rock the Valley, a day of music, art, family, and fun, is scheduled for Saturday, August 19th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Nolan Field. That's at 350 Wakely Avenue in Ansonia. And this year's concert features the cast of Beatlemania, also appearing the Bernadettes, Bob's Fault, and the region's premier Jimi Hendrix tribute band.
No kidding.
Electric Ladyland Band USA. Now,
Wow.
some trivia. One of our state senators
Oh, yeah.
is a member of Electric Lady Band USA. Can anyone take a guess? As to, let's let the know.
Oh, yeah.
We have a 50-50 shot. I'll let Stephan guess.
I couldn't even render a guess.
I'm going to go with Senator Blumenthal.
State Senator George Logan. I tricked you there. I did a little
That's
clickbait,
a little different.
clickbait switch there.
You
George
did.
Logan
No kidding.
will be playing this gig. And again, it's August 19th, Rock the Valley. There'll be crafters, food, a beer garden, and kids' activities. Check them out by searching Rock the Valley on Facebook, or go to cityofansonia.com, scroll down to featured events. And the rain date for Rock the Valley is August 20th. Okay, so a few weeks back, the two political parties in the town of Seymour nominated their slate of candidates for the upcoming election. Miller, that's you.
That's me.
You've been nominated for what? Everyone's checking their watch. You guys have been here for
No, it just buzzed.
20 minutes. They've checked their watches.
They told me
100
my
times.
stand goal is 5 of the 12 hours.
Okay. All right. So you've been nominated. What term? This is your fourth two-year term? Say that again?
Fourth.
As the first selectman.
Yes.
And then Mr. Behuniak over here, you're running for your second two-year term on
Board of Selectmen.
the Board of Selectmen. And I should just note for the record, Kurt, you're a Republican, and Stephan is a Democrat, for anybody keeping track at home. But let's compare. I thought we could talk about, let's compare Seymour politics to the political climate in the neighboring towns, specifically Ansonia and Derby, because I'm sort of obsessed with Seymour, because basically you guys seem to be, the debates, either you have it's on a higher level, or it's more civil. I don't know if higher level is the right term, or you're just really good at hiding your dysfunction. I don't know which it is. And if you look at Ansonia, right? When did Ansonia, Ethan? When did they get taken over by the Republicans? 2013. Okay. Republicans come in, they sweep out the Democrats, and a big shift in who's running the city. And then eventually, though, the Republicans just start fighting with each other for whatever reasons. And the same thing in Derby, where there's Democratic control of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office right now, yet the mayor and the majority of her aldermen just do not get along. And that's been brought very public by the fact that there is supposed to be a primary, that Mayor D'Agato is being challenged by Carmen DeCenzo, a member of her own party. And we're not even talking about the rivalries among the traditional two parties in each town, the Democrats and the Republicans. So, but to get the feel of that rivalry, all you got to do is log on to the Valley Indy's Facebook page.
Right.
14,000 strong, by the way. Just in Ansonia this week, we had a supporter of Mayor Cassetti accuse us of bias because we ran several photos of the mayor's opponent within a letter to the editor written by the mayor's opponent. To me, it was one of the most bizarre and somewhat scary accusations of bias I've seen, and I've been a reporter for 19 years now. And I thought it was bizarre because on its face, it's ridiculous, and scary because you're saying that an entire institution is somehow inherently unfair because they printed a political view,
A letter to the editor, essentially.
an opinion
Yeah.
that doesn't adhere to your personal political beliefs. To me, that's just a scary position to take in the U.S., but that's now mainstream. That type of thinking is now everywhere. Kurt, you're just trying to throw me off by
Fake news.
But yeah, and
exactly fake news. That's what's become
It's easy to say.
the mantra, and that sort of virus, that sickness, in my opinion, that's overtaken the national political scene, where people are so partisan, it's just insane. We're starting to see it trickle down in little ways, and I think that's an example, my opinion. And yet, in Seymour, Stephan, we had a freelance writer go up and cover the Democratic Town Committee's nominating convention.
Yep.
Or caucus, whatever it is. I always get screwed up on those terms. And you guys didn't run a candidate against Mr. Miller,
Correct.
right? Who, again, is messing.
It's just moving the microphone.
And I thought it was just a breath of fresh air to read your comments, assuming we reported them accurately, where you're just saying, hey, look, it's not a great time to be a Democrat at this point in time. You didn't attack the other side. Why not?
I don't think we have a lot to gain by attacking a candidate when we don't have an alternative candidate. Also, Seymour is in pretty decent shape comparatively to some of the other towns around us for a lot of reasons that Kurt talks about often. There are definitely members of my party that disagree with a lot of things that Kurt does. I don't agree with everything that Kurt has done and continues to do, but for the most part, we are in good shape. It's tough to criticize. At the moment, Seymour is a very Republican town, despite what the registered voter numbers say. We had 59% of people vote for Trump, and that's just, I think.
And I believe voted for Foley. Is that who took
Foley.
on?
Yeah, if you look at
Malloy.
national or statewide races, we vote Republican for everyone except Rosa DeLauro. Right. And my theory on that is people know Rosa DeLauro personally, and that makes them more likely to vote for her. I think you see that at all levels with Congress people. If you know the person that you're voting for, you're going to vote for him regardless of the party. So we're not in a great position, especially against a 3-term incumbent who is clearly popular. We ran a great campaign against him 2 years ago, and we didn't come close, frankly. So the problem is finding the right person who's willing to put themselves out there to almost certain loss this year, despite how well they might do. It's tough.
There is that argument that, well, you should, in a democracy, there should
always
be
be
another choice. How do you answer?
Right. So we thought about that a lot. I mean, the process of creating our slate and coming to the realization we were not going to run a first selectman candidate was not a short or not well thought out process. We thought a lot about it. We discussed a lot about it. All the senior members of the Democratic Party talked about it. It's just not the time for the right people. The people who could run a very good campaign and need the platform. You don't want to discourage them with a sound defeat this year. And frankly, a lot of our good people are young. We have.
That brings me to. I want to ask you about.
We can get into that. I can go on for
No, but go
7
ahead.
hours
Go
about
ahead.
that.
Yeah.
But just the right. It's not the right time.
There's
for
a
the right
movement.
people.
There's a movement afoot in the lower Naugatuck Valley, where
Definitely
it's what'd you say?
I said there definitely is.
With young Democrats, right? And then they're literally called the Naugatuck Valley. What is the name of that
Naugatuck
group?
Valley Young Democrats. To plug them, I'm the vice president of the Naugatuck Valley Young Democrats. The president, Kara Rochelle, she's a powerhouse, man. She will find people out of everywhere. So
I keep having these people knock on my door. I'm unaffiliated.
yeah.
My wife is a Democrat.
Mhm.
I don't know if she wants me sharing that with the world, but I just did. So we were getting a lot of knocks on my door because there's a lot of, the primary coming up in Derby. And yeah, these are people that they're younger people, new to the scene, and I believe they're all from that group. So
A lot of them are. We've gotten a lot of people involved. And that's tough.
And I interrupted you, but because I wanted to come back to
Sure.
that and ask you what. But go ahead, whatever you were saying. Whatever you were saying. I'm really a great broadcaster. I apologize.
Just to put a bow on it, I think we have a strong slate. Something that we were very conscious of when we were putting the slate together was putting people into the right positions where our best people had the best chance to get elected. We faced the prospect of probably just getting minority representation, which, if people don't know, every elected town board, you have to have a certain number of people not in the majority party. So that's basically what we get right now with the demographics the way they are. So we wanted to make sure our best people and our brightest and most up-and-coming people had a chance to be elected this year.
And I will say, I put this on Twitter, just bouncing back to whether we're biased. I am unaffiliated, but I thought one of the groups that could make a legit complaint against us for possibly being unfair is your group, only because we have Kurt Miller monthly on this podcast. And, one of our challenges is, first of all, we're not broadcasters, we're not podcasters. So when we got this equipment and this idea, we're sort of flying blind. But our thought was, we'll have on the chief elected official in each town to get updates on just what's happening in the town. And I don't think, Kurt, you've ever come in and really, we try to get you to make sling political mud, but you don't really go for it.
No.
But anyway, it's just surprising to me that places where I don't think we're going to get accused of bias, we do, and then places that we could probably say, yeah, you do have a point there. I can't argue that, but here's why. I would have to justify it. But it doesn't happen in Seymour, so people are so darn civil.
There's and I was telling you, there's some Seymour Democrats who think that there's some biases, not just with your paper, but with every other paper. But I think part of that comes from us not being a party in power. Naturally, we're going to get less coverage. Naturally, Kurt has an easier platform to put his triumphs and successes out there. Kurt is not going to willingly offer failures or perceived failures. Nobody's going to, right? So that's where that feeling comes from. I don't think there's any biases from this paper.
I think there is a natural bias. Like you're always going to sort of favor the person who's in power just because they're the ones that are driving the ship. Wouldn't you agree, Ethan? And the way to not, you got to return
I don't
calls.
I don't think it's a natural bias. I wouldn't say bias. It's just like they're going to
be in
get
the news
covered
more.
more. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And something like when I write local stories, like a lot of the time I don't say
forget.
Republican first selectman Kurt Miller,
right?
And
it does. It literally doesn't come into your mind.
Yeah. And in Seymour, it's the Republicans are enjoying more success right now. But there is a Democratic chairman of the Board of Finance, and that's the most important. Besides the Board of Selectmen, I think people would say the most important town board, and he seems to have a pretty good working relationship with everybody. So as you said, it just seems to be less contentious in Seymour, and unless that's at the forefront of the issue, the party politics, occasionally we see in Ansonia, then it's you delve into that. But if you're just writing a story about the alderman's meeting, the mayor said this, it's not like Republican Mayor David Cassetti XYZ. I don't know.
One thing I want, going back to Seymour for a second, I was at your nominating convention up there in Seymour. My favorite part was where you have the skate park.
Yep.
Right outside, and right before you guys began, I'm assuming it was a kid, but maybe it wasn't. Somebody went by on a skateboard dressed as a dinosaur.
Yes,
which
was nice.
I did take a picture of that. I didn't run it, but it was just a great moment.
Was it Ken Dixon? Ride the dinosaur. Maybe it was like a
holy cow. That's a reference
guerrilla
to
marketing campaign from the Bad Slugs. That's the
and the
Connecticut Post newsroom band.
Yeah, there's a newsroom band, and we've been using their music as our intro. Ride the Dinosaur is about the newspaper industry. But I wanted, at the end of that meeting, I didn't put it into the article. By the way, I overwrote that article. That was kind of embarrassing when I go back and look at it. I was grasping for straws. There wasn't
crazy.
a lot of. There wasn't. You made a speech? No, there was no nominating speech.
Yeah, sad.
Put me to work there. But anyway, I did talk to Al Bruno after the meeting, and I just want to play. When I edit this together, it'll sound better. But I asked Mr. Bruno about. Okay, so in Ansonia, we had the GOP take over. They started fighting with each other. In Derby, we had the Democrats take over. They started fighting with each other more than they fight with the opposite party. But in Seymour, there's this thing where the Republicans came back, actually. Sort of you were part of the new upstart members of the Republican Party after First Selectman Koskowski lost to Democrat Paul Roy. Then
Yes.
you came in and got it back after 2 years. But I just asked him why he thought the Republicans weren't imploding in Seymour or fighting like they have in other towns, and here's what he had to say. And I thought it was interesting because he actually sort of went into the personal decisions involved in running for office, which I would never do. But here we go, because it's too much of a headache. So how do you prevent infighting from within your own party that we see elsewhere? What's the key to that?
I think the key is you have to have a strong leader who knows how to collaborate with others, who's willing to listen to other people. We have not shut out anybody's opinion, to my knowledge, in the 6+ years I've been involved. When Kurt first asked me to run back in 2011, I was a little hesitant. I didn't feel like I really didn't want to get involved in town politics at the time, just because I just didn't feel I was ready for it. I was running our local soccer club. I'm president of the local soccer club. And I could see how it was a lot of work to be a volunteer. I understand that, but I wanted to give back to my community. And he said to me, "We're going to do it the right way." And I said,
like negativity or anything like that? The headaches that come with that?
I think just the I just wasn't sure how that might be perceived with kids in the school system. My wife worked in the school district at one point, and I wasn't sure I wanted to take on those volunteer kind of issues. I was kind of happy doing my own thing, volunteering, and work has always been a priority for me and my family. But it hasn't really interfered that much, so I'm glad that he successfully talked me into it and gave me a chance. But my point was that I said, "Kurt, you have to be transparent. Like, if we're going to do this, it has to be transparent with the leadership. I don't want to deal with any drama if we don't have to. Let's do things the right way." And he said, "Yeah, we are." And we have. So to answer your question, I think that's why. I think Democrats and Republicans alike, I think we understand what we're trying to do. We've communicated it, we've moved it forward, and like Kurt said, we had a little dip. We've kind of dug ourselves out of that hole that was created. We've stabilized the community's finances. Our bond rating's gone up. We've brought new business in town. We still have, well, like he said, we still have to keep moving it forward. There's still a lot of work to be done.
So that was Al Bruno, who basically said that the reason the Seymour Republicans haven't turned on each other in any way is because of your leadership.
I guess
It's the brown-nosed Kurt Miller program, apparently. But how do you keep any type of warring factions within your party in line, or does it just not exist up there in Seymour?
There's definitely, I wouldn't say the RTC is one cohesive unit. There's certainly some people that disagree with the things that I've done. But when it comes to the selectmen, there's a lot of back and forth between them. I take their opinions. I run things by them. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call them arguments, but heated discussions in my office. But when a decision is made by the group, we come out and we're all together on that. And you don't see that in a lot of other towns. Going back to some of the comments earlier, I think Fred Stanek is, and I've used this analogy before, but, at the local level, the Republicans and the Democrats are nothing but two clubs. Picking up your garbage and plowing the roads and having good schools and keeping taxes low. Those aren't Republican or Democratic issues. Those are just good issues for small towns. So we are two distinct clubs during the campaign. So out of every 24 months, 3 months of that, we're in campaign mode and we're two distinct teams. But the other 21 months, we're 16,500 people in a small town. just trying to make the community better. So I think a lot of the people in Seymour have that mentality, both Republicans and Democrats. I mean, Stephan and I work very well together. We're putting a charter revision commission together, and him and I went back and forth a lot, picking the people to make sure that we got the right people in this group. A lot of other towns don't do that, so I think we're just fortunate. Where the Democrats are now and what Stephan is doing is where we were in 2011. Well, in 2009. We kind of did the same thing. We were able to do it a little bit quicker because of the demographics of the town, as you guys have talked about. But
kind of regroup and
we reorganized, got some younger, fresh faces in that we hadn't had in Seymour politics before, and I think that's helped. The same thing that they're trying to do on the Democratic side. And I think if you remember my speech, I said that the Democrats are young and they're hungry, and we just can't take, because they don't have a first selectman candidate, we just can't just rubber stamp this and think it's going to be easy. We still got to get out, hit the doors, and do all the important campaign stuff that we need to do, because they're going to do all that.
It was interesting, you brought up charter revision, and I was looking through, we have our wall of propaganda when you first walk into our office in Ansonia, and back in 2011, there were 3 people running for first selectman. There was Paul Roy, who was the incumbent at that point. You were the Republican challenger, and then Gene Loda was a petitioning candidate. And it's interesting, if you just, this is a podcast, so it's not going to work as well. But if you look at the Derby Democratic and Republican flyers from that year, you got one party calling the other party a liar, essentially, with a cartoon. It looks like they employed the same cartoonist.
Like the Disney intellectual property people might want to have a word about.
There's so much going on in this particular flyer where
one with the growing nose.
One side's calling the other side a liar, and there's Pinocchio with the growing nose, and then you have this other where it's a picture of a old bald, looks like a salesman. Death of a Salesman type
Willie Loman
cartoon character, looking like he's very upset. He's clearly packed up his bags and is being thrown out of his home. It looks like it's just terrible. Then you go to Seymour's, and Gene Loda, who was like an upstart that year, sort of the maverick rogue. She went rogue that year, and her. I'm holding like a 4-page flyer, and it's just complete issues, just total issues. One of which was charter revision. So it's just interesting to me to see the difference between the way the politicians work in some of these towns. But I think roads. She brought up roads, which became sort of a cornerstone of your administration. And then there's some others, and then this Tri-Town, the things that will always seem to plague Seymour. It looks like Tri-Town Plaza, the Ames building. There, but anyway, so getting back to the upstart Democrats. Tell me about the young Democrat group. How often you meet, and whether because in my mind, I'm just, and this is just a hypothesis that I think this is what I think about in my spare time. I've never actually asked anybody. But on the national level, you have Donald Trump in office, who's offensive to many people. I don't like Donald Trump. I'll tell you that right now. I think the man is a plague on our country because of what comes out of his mouth. That's just me.
I agree.
Has that spurred the local Democrats and the people you're associated with to get involved?
Yeah, it certainly has. An issue with young people particularly, and I think this applies to everybody also in local politics, is people don't know where to go. Before I joined the Democratic Town Committee, I did not know what a town committee was. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. I think the nature of the election in the fall was so preposterous on all levels that it really made a lot of people question what's going on. Why is this happening? And I think they all realize it's time, if I'm ever going to be involved, it's time to get involved now. And I think because Donald Trump won, it allowed Democrats to feel like they really had to get moving. And so to the Naugatuck Valley Young Democrats, we meet once a month on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. We also have basically like a pub night monthly, typically on the 2nd Tuesday of every month.
How many people are involved in it?
I would say our numbers right now are somewhere in the 20s, maybe about 25 people.
What campaigns are you involved in locally?
So,
because obviously it seems like you're really entrenched in the Derby race from what I see.
Well, we're very new. We're a very new organization. We started late winter. So right now we are most involved in Derby, and that simply because there's a lot going on in Derby. We have a Democratic primary coming up in Derby, which obviously impacts the Young Democrats want to have an impact on that right away. But we will be involved in all of the races. We actually have members of the Naugatuck Valley Young Democrats running in just about every town in the valley for some positions. So we will certainly be supporting our people in those races and, good Democrats that we believe in.
Could I ask a question? Since the election of Trump, there's been this fight within the center left to all left, saying this is why Trump won. Hillary was too much of a centrist. Just to sum it up quickly, that's obviously more complicated. Is that, do you see that reflected on the local level, or is there just sort of more of a big tent idea, or do you think you guys as the Young Democrats are more to the left than the traditional Democratic parties in the Valley?
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I think the bulk of people who felt disenfranchised by this election were Bernie people, and not necessarily just Bernie people, but people who, and I mean, Young Democrats anyways skew farther left. That's just the demographic thing. So a lot of the people that are coming in, they were pissed off about first how Bernie was treated, and then the vast majority jumped onto Hillary's bandwagon, and then the way that she was treated during the campaign and the way that the party treated everyone else. I think there was a big perception of inequality. That people don't like when when they feel like someone is anointed, and I think a lot of people felt like Hillary was anointed. It's an interesting balance, though. There are definitely people all over the Democratic spectrum that are involved, but definitely a spike in the far left, for sure.
How about, I mentioned Trump, but then I should also mention, to be fair, that we have Governor Malloy on the state level, who is extremely unpopular. We keep getting people...
Anytime we post an article about even mentioning him in passing, it's
you're going to get 10
almost.
Yeah, you're guaranteed 10 that guy's a bum, throw him out type posts. And this dysfunction that's happening on the state where they can't get their financial house in order, we keep getting people asking us all the time.
Where it's the opposite of here, where Republicans have the majority in statewide. It's Democrats have almost a veto-proof majority.
How is
in the state legislature, yes, but if you look at the chief elected officials of the communities, there's substantially more Republicans than Democrats.
How's the state budget crisis affecting Seymour right now? Have you sent out your car taxes?
We sent it out at 36 mils.
Okay.
If the state does pass a budget and it does go to 32 mils, which I don't believe it will, at that point we'll just refund the money back to the residents.
Because I mentioned that because in Ansonia and Derby, we're still waiting, and people are very confused.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to cause confusion. I would rather, at some point, maybe in January or February, we're sending residents a check for a refund in taxes as opposed to going back to them and asking for more.
And I was going to say, is that check going to be
October 31st,
November 2nd?
Yeah. We got a letter yesterday from Ben Barnes, who is the commissioner of OPM,
the budget man,
and he essentially said that the state, while they're supposed to be funding out of the MERS account for the drop in the mill rate,
don't look
cars,
at anything because then you drop out.
Oh, sorry.
Just you gotta go like this.
The state is refusing to send that money onto the towns at this point. So
I stepped on that. Repeat that.
The state is refusing to send the money onto the towns to pay for the drop in the mill rate in cars to 32 mils. So again, it's another unfunded mandate from the state. And again, this is another program that's 2 years old that they can't even maintain.
Now, I would think, as a Republican, Kurt, you're involved with Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti's run for governor.
Yes.
It would seem that the Republicans, this is your party's race to lose, given Malloy's unpopularity. Is that?
You would think that, but I think there's some very good Democratic candidates as well. So I don't think it's just going to be a shoo-in.
And Malloy has already declared himself. He's not.
Yeah,
running.
the governor said he's not going to run.
He seems to know that how unpopular he is.
I think he sees the writing on the wall.
And then backtracking to this talk of negative culture or campaigning, Trumbull and Shelton got holy cow.
Yeah.
Neighboring towns, two Republicans.
Two friends, too.
Two really?
Yeah.
They did not seem like friends based on what they're saying in the newspaper. For anyone,
they're very friendly. Yeah.
They, I guess, what happened was Timothy Herbst.
Yeah,
Herbst.
Tim Herbst.
Yeah,
I want to make sure. Okay, I don't want to mispronounce his name, but I guess Q-Tip is based. They're owned by Unilever.
Unilever, yeah.
According to the Connecticut Post, and they moved some jobs, some people from Trumbull to Shelton. And what did Loretti do? Like a victory lap? How did this get started? And why? How does this benefit anybody to see these two?
I'm not 100% sure of the genesis of how it all started, but it came up about businesses being in Shelton and things like that. And Mayor Loretti had said, well, look at example of Unilever. Things are so good in Shelton that they were willing to move one town over, and that's, I think, the point that he was trying to make. It wasn't really an attack per se on Trumbull, an attack per se on First Selectman Herbst. It was just more a point of Shelton is so attractive that towns will simply move one town over to get the benefits of Shelton. Tim, who I'm very good friends with, he's a very aggressive campaigner, and he sees that as a slight of him and a slight of Trumbull. So he in turn is going to return fire into Mayor Loretti, and that kind of started the back and forth between those two.
I saw something. It might be a private Facebook page, so I don't want to name the person, but I saw someone from Shelton, a Shelton resident, posted a comparison of Trumbull SAT scores versus Shelton SAT scores, and I think Trumbull did slightly better or something. And then there was a comment by Tim Herbst. Herbst. I don't know why I keep. Sorry. He basically not bashed Loretti, but he basically used every Democratic critique of Mayor Loretti we've heard since 2009, saying he doesn't do enough to fund the schools, he doesn't fund the roads. It was interesting to see, and to see it on a personal page of just some, not exactly random, but a Shelton resident was surprising. So yeah, he is pretty aggressive there.
And this is the thing.
And Loretti doesn't even read email, so he's never going to see this.
No.
And I would have thought that, Loretti's just going to take over the Valley in terms of that Republican primary, I guess, nomination fight. We'll see if it goes to a primary. But it appears that Herbst has some traction with some local Republicans, because I think I saw he'll be speaking at a fundraiser for Mayor Cassetti here in Ansonia coming up. So and he stopped by, just dropped in on an alderman's meeting a month or so ago in Ansonia, just to wave his hand and do a little flesh handshaking with all the people. So I thought that was interesting too.
Well, and this goes back to what we were talking about when we started. The fact that you have two potential top candidates for governor in the Republican Party are fighting with each other this far out from the election is just insane. These guys should be focused on qualifying for the money to make sure that they're there, and then starting in January working on the delegates, so you go into the convention with the money qualified and with minimum your 15% delegates to qualify for the primary ballot. The fact that they're attacking each other about where Unilever is and who has better SAT scores, as a first selectman, we have no say in the school system. So for Tim to make that comment to Mark is quite ridiculous. If I'm Mark, I would turn around and say, well, the taxes are so much lower in Shelton than they are in Trumbull. Someone can send their kid to private school, and they would still pay less doing that than they would taxes in Trumbull. So, but why are we wasting our time on things like that? We have a state budget that hasn't been passed. All the Republicans and all the Democrats should be working together to get that state budget passed. That's where their focus should be, and that's the disappointing thing.
Did any of you see the, I think it was either a blog post or maybe a column in the Current, I don't know which, it was Kevin Rennie. Apparently the state Republicans have like a list of reporters in there. Did you see this? And Neil Vigdor was, now we can't talk about it.
I believe Neil was banned from the state convention.
Yeah, that was, but then there's something else came out within the last couple of weeks, but I'll move on since you guys aren't familiar with it. Daily Ructions is where I saw it.
Yeah, that's Kevin's thing.
So going back to Seymour, I've lost my train of thought, so I'll edit this next part out of the podcast.
But you're editing things.
I'm a little bit if I curse or something like that. But I wanted to ask you something Seymour specific. Is there any issues you want to touch upon in Seymour, and maybe what I actually wanted to ask you about will
want to know the updated fund balance?
Pop back into my head.
How about the debt ratio? No.
We could do This Week in History.
Yeah. Let's do This Week in History.
And this is a Seymour specific.
Holy cow.
Beautiful.
Seymour specific This Week in History.
8 years in the making.
And I just want to note it's very hard to find Seymour news from the old Evening Sentinels because apparently no one's cared about the town.
Seymour's been ignored for years.
August 1st, 1906. This was interesting. Seymour, residents of the Washington Avenue and Humphrey Street area are complaining they cannot get any sleep because of the train whistles blowing day and night. Not an issue currently right now, frequency of trains. But
that's correct.
They're building in the process of building a siding that at local stations that will allow more trains on the Waterbury line.
I just want to say in
hopefully
Derby,
mine and Stephan's grandkids will be able to see that.
Might take a while. In Derby, we have, I live on Hawthorne Avenue, sort of overlooking a couple of the old, like Derby Cellular, the Harbison, I can't remember the name of his business, but those guys too. One of those has like a whistle still goes off. And it's like, I don't know what type of whistle, like a shift. It's just, it's not doing anything, but it still goes off at various times. Just one of those like weird traditions that if anybody knows where that whistle is from, put it on our Facebook page and you'll win my appreciation.
And a free mug.
And a free month of
that
the Valley Indy.
Send to you.
Yeah, don't bring up the mugs. We still have to mail out our great give ones. I'll have to edit this out too. Yeah, we're gonna have George Jepson on us for
false pretenses.
Yeah, I got to do that.
August 11th, 1906. A total of 1,000 people watch a state league baseball game between the Seymour and Woodbridge town teams. Many leave disgusted as they think the game was thrown in Woodbridge's favor with a score of 10-2.
Another way, Seymour threw it. Seymour took a dive.
In the days that follow, 3 players are subsequently thrown off the Seymour team over the incident. And this seems to be sort of a running undercurrent in Seymour because August 9th, 1930, an ugly scene occurs when the Shelton Crescents baseball team beats the Seymour Cubs at Park Field. The Shelton team and fans are reportedly stoned while leaving town.
Well,
several are injured.
That's what you
and
get.
Then 2 days later, according to these are from the Evening Sentinel archives via derbyhistorical.org, August 11th, 1930, responding to the criticism levied by Shelton Crescent's baseball team's alleged rough handling after winning a game against Seymour at Park Field, Seymour supporters claim Shelton fans started throwing stones first. They further allege that the last time the Cubs played in Shelton, the Seymour team and fans had to, quote, sneak off for fear of being killed, unquote, after the game. So those local baseball rivalries were something else. You think the football is bad now, back in the day.
I would never think to pick up a rock and throw it at someone. That's like old school.
You'd hope, yeah.
You know?
I know. I remember what I wanted to ask you guys.
Oh, all right. An epiphany.
The other day, actually last night, I guess there was a meet and greet for the new school superintendent in Seymour, Mike Wilson, who was previously the assistant superintendent in Ansonia. Before that, worked in Greenwich. Have you met him? Have you guys? What's your assessment of Mr. Wilson and how he'll do in the town of Seymour?
We actually haven't met as of yet.
Really? Yeah. This is fascinating to me. See, I just figure you guys all get together and have like a big powwow with.
No, we were scheduled to have lunch a couple times, which we had to cancel for different reasons, both him and I. But we have not actually physically shaken hands yet.
Stefan?
I haven't met him either. I've talked to a good number of members of the Board of Education, and they all said pretty much the same things about him. They said he's a good guy. He'll have a good direction for the town, and they're excited to get him started. So I look forward to it. But no, I have not met him either.
Ethan, do you have
Have you met him, Ethan?
I have met him a couple times.
But we have about, I guess we have about 10 minutes. I know you guys have to get out of here. We've been on for 41 minutes, and I want to ask Stephan, is there any issues in Seymour in general that you want to talk about or let people know about? Anything or everything under the sun?
Well, I think we're going to get into campaign season very soon here. I think a lot of issues will come up. Something that's been kind of coming up a lot lately, at least in the Board of Selectmen level, is economic development, which is an issue everywhere. There's been some good, interesting conversations about the direction of the town's economic development and debate about what we should be doing in that regard. I think that will be continuing for quite a while.
Is the issue that the Democrats you're not happy with the way economic development is handled in town, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you have is it part-time? You have a part-time economic development
director
who's a realtor.
Yes.
I think Democrats are very unhappy with economic development, but I think more than just Democrats. I think just about everybody would like to see more economic development. There's definitely some disagreement on how we do that. For example, the biggest point of contention, I think, is the Greenway Trail, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. Phase 1 is just about to open. That's supposed to open, what, next week? 2 weeks? Something like that?
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money on it. I know we got a lot of state funding for it. The economic development director spends a good majority, or at least 50% of his time working on that project. There's definite belief among a lot of people that his time could be better spent, considering we do have probably right now, I would say, the slowest, at least if you look at like retail, we have the slowest retail economic development in the Valley. And I know we should be shifting away from retail because retail is kind of dead, but it doesn't make people happy to see that, I think.
So I would think, okay, if somebody, and just based on what you said, I have no prior knowledge of any of this, but usually in other towns where we see them deal with greenways, there's like a grant person or someone full-time who wears both hats, because that's that's pretty much funded by grants. Mm-hmm. And usually there's someone who, like the grant administrator, will be doing all that. But you're saying the economic development director is too tied in or too consumed, perhaps by
I believe
fault,
so.
But the nature of the position that it's part-time.
Right. I believe so. And if you watch the video or read the minutes from the last selectman meeting, you could hear a lot about some disagreeing with that. That's something that Kurt and I, for example, disagree on. Right. But we don't get into knockdown, drag-out fights about it necessarily.
Well, you will right now. We got 10 minutes. How does one find the Seymour Selectmen video?
Sure, they're right on YouTube on Seymour. It's Seymour CT YouTube page. What's it called?
Yeah, SeymourCT.org, and there's a link for videos.
Yep. Oh, gotcha. Right. Okay. Yep. So that's an interesting subject, I guess, Kurt. As we close out, let's talk for a second about
videos or economic development.
Economic development, or videos of economic development, which that's page view gold.
I would challenge the assertion that there's
just turn that microphone slight. Yeah, okay.
Economic development in Seymour, and I think Stephan actually said it would. If people focus on retail, I would agree. There's not a lot of retail development going on in Seymour like there is in Ansonia and Derby, but I would argue Larry Janeski's $16 million investment in the town of Seymour for his new buildings. One he just opened on Tuesday.
Building 3,
and I think if you were there, I mean, you saw. That's quite a building. So when you have one of your largest taxpayers, one of your largest employers, making that kind of reinvestment in the community, I think that says a lot about the direction. You look at the major investments that Thule has made, MPI has made. So these are our big taxpayers, our big employers. They see what's going on, and they're making those investments. So I would challenge the notion that there's no economic development in Seymour just because it's not Tri-Town Plaza. That is not the only place for economic development in the town of Seymour. But now this is a fight between Stephan and I. So you see,
you guys are calling this a fight.
But that's what I'm saying. This is what it's like. These are the fights we have. Okay. It's respectable. It's gentlemanly. And when we're done, and we move on to work on something else. I think that's why we work so well together.
Did you want to respond to the economic?
Well, I'm just going to say something that I try to do since I've gotten involved in local politics is to try to base my positions more on what people tell me about than what I think necessarily. I obviously, there's a lot of influence. What I think influences my decisions a lot. However, what I hear from people also influences my decisions. I think to toot my own horn a little bit, I think I get out there and talk to people as much as anybody. And I think Kurt would agree with that.
Oh, yeah, I would. Absolutely.
And so an issue that comes up constantly, if you go door knocking, you can go door knocking in February of a non-election year, and people will tell you that they're not happy with economic development. And you have to take it with a grain of salt, because not everybody knows exactly the ins and outs of it, but there's an issue. I think if you polled everyone in town, 80-90% would say that we can be doing a better job with economic development. So it's something that you have to care about, and you have to think of better ways. So I disagree that the economic development director should be spending so much time on the Greenway Trail, but I understand the points as to why he does.
Do you agree that there should be an economic development director, or is there a way to? Would you change the position, make it full time, and which would probably involve spending more money?
Well, I think a part-time economic development director can work, and is probably what we should be trying to do. I just disagree with his charge, I would say.
And did the economic development office or the director play a part in those expansions you're talking about?
To a certain extent, helps with permitting, things like that. But when people want to invest, and you take at that level, Larry Janeski and Basement Systems and Thule, they have the resources, they have the ability, they're going to go through it. They don't need help from the town. Now, Fred did help them with the tax incentive plan, like I said, helped them with zoning, helped them with the building official, things like that. But that's his job to facilitate when it's private land. We don't have town land where he can be out actively selling and trying to develop that himself. So he just simply needs to be a resource for those developers. So
something I would like to see more, because I've been saying I don't agree. A couple things I would like to see more is, and I've mentioned this now at Selectmen meetings, I would like to see him have, or even just we don't have to talk about anybody specifically, but the economic development department in town, let's say, I think they should have a better readiness with information than they do currently. And I think that the time of the economic development director could be better spent maybe advising, like planning and zoning, for instance, which is a volunteer. They're elected, but these are by and large volunteers. I think if he were in more contact with them, advising them on, because he's supposed to be an expert in the field of economic development. So if he was advising people like planning and zoning on ways to maybe help our economic development, if we could change some regulations, if we could look at better ways to drive business, I think that would be time better spent.
Okay. With that, that's 49 minutes. We're just about finished.
Well, we don't get the full hour. This
is
Ansonia. They get the full hour.
You guys are
Derby
busy.
get an hour
You're
and 20.
busy. Well, what I'm saying is, but
we're just starting to crank it up a little bit.
But we keep it concise.
You
and
just flipped a piece of paper at me. So
and,
this
and to the point. More people will listen. Now we can tease this as get ready for the big fight over economic development at the end.
I will say that I do appreciate the way that Kurt and I personally get along. I appreciate the way that our parties fight less than other towns. It really bothers me a lot when I see somebody like Tarek Raslin enter the race and immediately
that's in Ansonia. He's the Ansonia
right.
Democratic
immediately be chastised for reasons that people don't even understand. I've seen comments about his name. I've seen comments about his experience or what people perceive as lack thereof, and these people have never spoken to him. I saw the controversy 2 days ago about his letter to the editor, and I think that's very petty. I think the people getting angry about it are misguided, because I've written letters to you guys. Kurt has, pretty much everyone who is involved in anything in the Valley has, and you've run them all, and to get angry about a guy who they think, and the guy hasn't gone out there and been, FUing Cassetti. And even if you love Cassetti, you have to admit that there should be room for another person to be able to challenge him. I mean, people in his own party challenge him constantly.
As Mayor Cassetti himself said repeatedly, like there was, he thought that there might not be a Democratic candidate, and he's always said, like, no, let's have a debate. I hope I have an opponent. So
yeah, he welcomes. I mean, even when we had him on the podcast, we never. Those weren't prepped in any way. We didn't tell him. He didn't say like, "Oh, I'll only come on if you talk about this." That we would ask him anything under the sun. And
I can't think of a time. I mean, he's very accessible. He is, and so is Tarek, in my experience. But it's when you're a reporter, sometimes you deal with politicians who, oh, could I talk to you about this? And then, they take 2 weeks to try to avoid, having to answer questions about something. And Cassetti hasn't, in my memory, I don't think he's like, yeah, we'll come over at 2 or whatever. He's always usually pretty open about it. So,
but, to Stephan's point, the man puts out an initial letter to the editor essentially introducing himself. And that generates that much hoopla, that much animosity. He really hasn't talked about positions, where he stands on things. So it's scary to think what it's going to be like when he does.
Yeah.
I just think he was simply introducing himself. Maybe there shouldn't have been so many pictures. Who knows? But
yeah, I'll agree. Okay, yeah, like that's one thing we learned out of this.
If that's what the big issue is, then people know. If you want to add a picture to your story, then add a picture to your story. I don't think it's that big a deal. It's a picture of him at his wedding and riding a dirt bike, and I don't get the big deal of it, to be honest.
It's just so discouraging to me, and it's happening in Derby too. I mean, now you have 3 people in a mayoral race there. I will say I think the mayor has been above the fray, but I think her 2 challengers, immediately they come out and they're just immediately throwing pot shots, both of them, and I think it's wrong. I think that at a town level, to Kurt's point earlier, everyone's in it for kind of the same reasons. When you hear the announcement that someone is running for something, the first inclination of so many people is to hurl insults and to say, well, it doesn't matter because the other person's going to win, or we don't even need to listen to this person. All those things could be found right in the Valley Indy comment section. And yeah, comments on the internet are not something that you should be putting a lot of stock into, but the nature of town politics is that's kind of the sounding board for people to talk about the issues. And a lot of people, something that also discourages me is a lot of people won't give you the time of day when you go to their house, try to talk to them. People will, and it's hysterical because you could see if it's a Democrat or Republican that you're knocking on their door, and some of these people that are going to vote for you, you knock on their door and they tell you to go F yourself before you even get to their door.
Wait, do they literally say that from the other side?
Yep. Yeah. It happens all the time. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who. I'm sure Kurt's heard it from Republicans. I've heard it from many Democrats.
Yeah. Although, here's the thing, though. Like, in 2017, I don't want anybody knocking on. I live on a busy street. I'm in my underwear I'm just hanging out, playing Grand Theft Auto 5. Suddenly, I got Art Gherkins and Mayor D'Agato at my door. I'm not prepared for that.
Surprise. I saw somebody shared a clip of a stand-up comedian being like, the difference when you were like growing up and somebody rang the doorbell. It was like, come on in.
That's one of the greatest videos. I love that video.
We always had cake for the company, and now somebody rings the doorbell. It's like,
turn down your TV.
Navy SEAL frogmen.
I'm telling my kids to be quiet.
Crawling across the floor, yeah.
It's just the mailman.
But it is. Sometimes they bring you into the house to talk to you, so it slows you down. They'll kill 15 or 20 minutes BSing with you, so that way you're not out hitting doors. So there's a method to that as well.
Political game and shit going on in some of these towns.
So let's say it's I support candidate X and candidate Y is out the door. I might invite candidate Y into my house to sit down and have a 15 or 20 minute conversation, knowing full well I'm not going to vote for that person, but it's just slowing them down so they hit less doors that day. So
that is awesome.
That happens too, and that's almost as bad as people slamming the door in your face.
A lot of people
names or
a lot of people will answer the door, and then the only thing they want to know is what party are you in.
Yeah,
and
I hate that.
I hate it too. Yeah. And you know what? This is I hate to even say this because it's going to anger some people, and I would think my party in my town, considering I'm the chairman of the Democrats, but I don't think there should be any party affiliations in town politics whatsoever.
I agree.
I think it's counterproductive. I think it leads to, and this might sound like sour grapes because we're on the downside right now, but it leads to people just voting for a letter instead of voting for ideas. And I really don't like that. Well, and it's a weird position for me to be in, to be the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee. I understand that, but it's really discouraging when you go to someone's door and they say, "What party are you?" And what they're thinking is they're thinking healthcare, they're thinking guns, they're thinking taxes at the national, they're thinking income tax, things like that. They're not thinking, what's your plan to pave my street? What's your plan to fund education? What's your plan to improve the parks? That doesn't cross their mind. And it's really frustrating.
Well, it's like the old days when we went in the booth. There was a Republican lever and a Democratic lever. You can just pull it, and that was it. You didn't even have to look at who the candidates were. You can just straight party vote with one click. So I agree. I think parties should be taken off at the local level because it should be about the person and their ideas. Because, again, there's no Republican or Democratic. We're not going to get into abortion. We're not going to talk about guns. We're not going to talk about health care. We're not going to talk about those things at a local level. If we do, honestly, I'll get up and leave a Board of Selectmen because it's not our place to talk about those things.
The founding fathers, who we all extol constantly,
not me. No, I'm just kidding.
Didn't envision political parties, and that's essentially what George Washington, in his farewell, said. Beware of political factions, and then here we are.
Yeah.
So.
And also the Statue of Liberty. No, I'm not even going to get into that. Emma
Lazarus is a good poet.
I agree with what everybody's saying here, and it's also, I just got a call before you guys walked in here. Somebody pitching a story. Did we, basically localize a national issue? And I just said no, I don't want to. And that's a thing we used to do at newspapers all the time, Ethan and I, where you take a big national issue and you kind of get the reaction local, or you find somebody that's being affected locally by whatever giant mega issue is going on. And I see that, and this may be wrong to say, but that's just outside our mission. That's one thing as Derby, and I know what you mean. Yeah, everyone's sort of taking swings at each other, but one of the things that we're trying to do this year in Derby specifically is do stories that are driven by the issues, from Gene Loda's old 2011 flyer right here. And that's why we did a story on taxes in Derby. There was some talk about, our taxes went up 10%, but there was a little more to it. And Route 34 widening, we're trying to take it different, because I think in years past, we sort of did that. We would try to cover everything, even when we had 3 people. And then we would just, whatever the daily name calling was, we would add gasoline to that fire by covering all that. And we've tried not to do that with our budget coverage this year. But what ends up happening is then the Post does it, and then people are like, hey, you guys missed this story. I'm not giving you nothing. And it, of course, backfires, and that's why the media is going to hell. But anyway, that's all right. You got 1 hour.
Wow.
I've been,
lucky us.
It's the only hour Seymour is going to get all month, but so I'm glad we maximized it.
I'm glad I got a chance to see who's emailing you there on your Gmail. It's like a who's who of Republican powerhouses in the Naugatuck Valley and beyond. I'm kidding. I didn't see anything. All right. So I want to thank Seymour First Selectman Kurt Miller for joining us.
Always my pleasure.
And Stephan Behuniak. You can follow him on Twitter at the Behuniak.
Yeah, that's a good place. Good place to be.
That's fantastic.
The best handle on Twitter. And Ethan Fry. Thanks, Ethan.
No problem.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and we're on vacation next week. Just a programming note. There'll be no news, at least out of the Valley Indy, next week. Wow. So
everybody hear that? Don't make any news next week.
It'll be just pretend this is what it's like.
We're doing all sorts of stuff next week.
All the news will happen because of that.
Next week is the week for illegal executive sessions. I think for everybody.
That's right.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Hundreds of years we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day. Online clickbait, a prurient way. There's free information here to stay. Not even hookers give it away. Advertising, metastasizing, newsroom shrinking, constant ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur. Deadlines, bylines, pictures too. An editorial comment for a buck or two. Fire down the block, the murder next door. And now we wonder what it's all for. Social media coming free to you, funny pages, the mayor's wages, criminal seats, corruption schemes, ink state wretches asking tough questions. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. The presses are running all through the night. We're printing the truth with all of our might. We're platform agnostics, got that interweb too. Buy an ad, see what we can do. We still have subscribers, still have our fans. We're here every day, so give us a chance and we'll make an art stand. Just hold us in your hand, and we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.